Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello. Just give it a couple of minutes for other people to show up.
Hello.
Hello.
Welcome to Besu, Lucas.
Thank you. Been a while. Although I feel like every time that I've joined this call after I moved was like to bear bad news. So when I show up, it's never a good thing.
This time's
Why
different.
would you show up with good news?
Yeah, true.
There's Slack emojis for that.
A few of
I'm
us.
just gonna drop the agenda in the channel,
Thank you.
in the chat even.
I completely forgot to post something in the agenda, but I can see that there's an open forum section, so I'll make use of that one.
All right. I'll share my screen and I'll get to it. Okay, let me know if you can't see my screen. The meeting's being recorded, as you should have got a notification for. There's housekeeping here, which I think everyone on the call is familiar with. Yeah. Oh, new edits. Let me just reload. Okay. So let's start with general announcements, for which there's nothing in the agenda, but has anyone got any general announcements? Okay. I think we normally skip over the roadmap review, but shout up if you want to go through anything. I think that link's out of date as well. Should probably update to the latest. So release updates. We did a big release. 24.3.0, which had a lot of changes in. I think we've probably talked about this before. But yeah, lots of things in the changelog to familiarize yourself with on that, including quite a few breaking changes like the default config and things like that. So we're defaulting to Snap and Bonsai now. It's probably the main one to be aware of. New edits. So any comments on 24.3.0 before we talk about the next release? Okay, it was also the first release that was built via GitHub Actions, which had some consequences, which we'll get to in a second. But first, let's talk about 24.3.1, which might end up being 24.4.0, more likely, I think. That is imminent, but is waiting on the completion of Snap's server. Has anyone got any updates about that? I think it's Gary that's looking at that.
I think it needs a review. It's at the review stage, so if anyone wants to review.
Okay. So some important consequences of moving to GitHub Actions for this release. We're no longer publishing the binaries to JFrog, which I think we talked about last time, which also had the consequence of we've removed, because we've removed Circle CI publishing, we stopped publishing the develop. We stopped publishing on every commit. And so which was useful for certain things. So we've reintroduced a develop tag, which is basically the latest commit from main 7 minutes ago. There you go. So it's possible to target the develop tag, which is useful for various things. We are no longer publishing to Docker Hub every commit though. So like the develop tag on Docker Hub is 14 days old there. I don't know the details of why we're not doing that, but it is known. So was someone going to say something then?
I was just going to say, is there a plan to fix that or get rid of the develop because it's stale now, that develop tag on Docker?
Yeah, I think my understanding is it is intentional that we're not publishing to it. Maybe a cost-saving thing. But you're right, we should probably remove it if we're not going to publish to it. I think that probably wants cleaning up.
I'll follow that up.
Thanks. Thank you.
There is a side effect with updating develop tag as well. Like if your local workflow involves fetching your tags on each call, like git fetch all, and you include tags as well, it will most likely conflict with your existing develop tag. So just be mindful that you might need to delete your local tag before you can do a tag pull. Like if you're pulling tag, if you don't usually do that, then there shouldn't be any issue.
Okay.
Yeah, just a heads up.
Well, I don't know why this isn't very nicely here. Okay, that seems to have saved. Yeah, good point. You see. Also worth calling out, there's a new format for the build version. So the version that was in Gradle.properties was going stale, so we've removed it. And when you build from source, you now get a tag that looks a bit more, a version that looks a bit more like this. Whereas the binary release will still have the kind of normal Calver. Also, another consequence of the GitHub Actions was that we had stopped publishing Besu artifacts to JFrog. So not just the binaries, but also the artifacts. So we've added that back in because there are some downstream dependencies. Hedera, I think, used the EVM library, EVM as a library. Web3 Signer and maybe Teku use some of the Besu libraries, metrics, for example. So yeah, that's addressed now, and it will come in the next release. But it isn't possible to update for 24.3.0, I believe.
Has there been any movement on getting the artifacts into Maven Central? Because I remember that being a discussion point on the Discord channels.
I don't think it's discussed on Hyperledger Discord yet, but within devs, it's been discussed. But yeah, I think we would need to get involve Rai if we need to publish it into Maven Central.
Yeah, there may not be any reason. I mean, if Artifactory works well for everyone.
Yeah, like if we go away from Artifactory, then the only benefit is if like I think most of Besu users, Maven users, they are okay adding JFrog Artifactory without any problem, unless some other project includes Besu library as a transitive library, as a transitive dependency. Then it is sometimes difficult to add JFrog Artifactory as a dependency. So people usually then prefers that all the transitive dependencies are also coming from Maven Central, for example. Sorry. So that's the main argument of going to Maven Central, other than the cost saving, of course, and reliability. I don't know how reliable is Maven Central is usually, but yeah. So for our case, I think for now we are okay with JFrog Artifactory as well.
Interesting.
Any more on the release? Okay, so on to work updates. Fairly new thing. We're tracking some peering issues. Just created a ticket for that because we got a few different reports of peering issues. Anecdotally seems to be related to Denkun. Could be a fork ID thing. We're not sure. It's been looked into, but basically seems to be a problem on Besu with Geth peers. Not sure if it's Besu or Geth related. We are looking at it, but be aware of that. Might especially be a problem during syncing as well.
I actually got a report from someone running Teku Besu, and they did report issues with low peers on Besu.
Yes.
So I told them to reach out to Hyperledger Besu Discord, so you might hear from them soon.
Thanks. I'll have a look for
Yeah.
their report and add it to this issue. So we can track it.
Cool.
Aeropone refactored out into standard repo. Does anyone want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the Besu code base had custom error-prone checks to make sure that our code follow certain patterns, like Pico CLI, experimental flags, and bits like those, which was part of Besu code base itself. And our build file was quite complex in maintaining error prone as a build artifact and then including it as an annotation processor for every other project. So by getting it out of Besu code base into its own repository and publishing it as a library, we have simplified our build file to include our custom error prone checks. This also allows us to use a newer version of error prone library itself as well. And like the PR to merge these changes in Besu is in its final review cycle, and it should be coming in soon. The Since we have updated our error prone checks and due to GitHub Actions running various tasks separately, so there might be some side effects for developers where if they introduce some code change, it might only be reported by the CI cycle, like GitHub Actions, not on local. So there might be some, like, a bit of issue over there. But all in all, we did manage to find few logical bugs in some of the tests and some of the code out of all of this exercise. So going forward, it will be a bit cleaner build file and one less module in Besu code base. So that was the background story of error prone.
Thanks, Aidan. Sounds good. Storage improvements for receipts, reducing synced node size by 78 gig on mainnet with SnapSync. Does anyone want to talk about this?
Yeah, that pretty much says it all. So that's I'll go around to measure this in. I've had it testing for a while. So this does the same trick that was done in Geth and Netmind, basically not storing the logs and as part of the receipts and recomputing those when we retrieve the receipts, and also removing the zero padding in the storage. So with all that, if you enable this, and it's not enabled by default yet, you save some disk space basically, which is nice. So it's about close to 80 gig on Snap's current fresh SnapSync, and I guess it'd be greater in the long run if you leave your node running.
Oh, that's awesome. So I
So
just
that's
enable
nice.
it and then save disk, is it?
So you only save from that point onwards. So it's backwards
Oh.
compatibility. So all new receipts will be
Okay. So if I want to get the full benefit, I would need to do a full resync?
correct. Yes. So there's the downside at the moment. we haven't written a subcommand to do that because
Okay.
it's just as slow to basically resync, unfortunately. But anyone spinning up a new node with this option in the future will get the full benefit.
Can I have just one quick question around syncing? Did we change anything in the past few months around SnapSync with Besu? Like, is it better, like more, reliable and things like that? Has anything changed? Just curious, because when I synced like a new node a couple of months ago, it took me like, I think, a week to get it synced even more. Just curious about it.
Yeah,
Anyone know anything?
it's changed a lot.
Okay.
Last few months.
Cool.
Been various refactorings to do with World State and Bonsai especially. And some of that is SnapSync related. I think one of the biggest thing is the heal mechanism. So once you've downloaded the world state and then you're kind of moving the world state on to match where the chain has progressed to,
Cool.
all of that is a lot more robust than it used to be.
Awesome. Okay. I'll give it a shot over the holiday and report back.
There's also, you might want to look into, there's a flat DB healing option that is currently experimental at the moment and disabled by default.
I think I'm using that one, but I'll double check.
That basically helps with performance. So rather than waiting for the flat DB to populate as the accounts are used. It does it during sync or during the heal step.
Okay.
That helps with performance.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have that FlatDB healing option.
Mhm.
I have that one. Okay, cool.
It does increase the overall sync a little bit though. So
Yeah. I mean, if it's it should be it's not too bad. Like I'll probably do it on the side or something. Just the only reason I'm asking is because I'm running out of space on my validator, and I really don't want to do the whole add a new storage. I just wanted to like save some. If I can save some gigabytes, I'll be happy. But that's I'm considering doing like a full sync, so I actually get all the benefit of this change.
Have you pruned the trilogs yet?
I've got try logs pruning enabled equals true. Do I need to actively do it?
If you started it before you enabled that, then yes.
Okay.
So similar to like with this receipts one, it only
Okay.
activates for the future.
Good to know.
But there is
Oh.
a sort of command for this one where it only takes a few seconds to basically prune all the old trilogs.
Okay. Well, let's think of the call. Maybe I can get some recommendations. But that's cool.
Sounds good. Okay, so that's the work updates. Any more work updates not in here?
I don't know if mine fits on work updates, but I've put it on open forum.
Cool. Well, do you want to skip to that and we'll see if there's anything else?
Sure.
No. EOP 7002.
Yeah, so a little bit of context. There are two EAPs scheduled for Prague and Electra, which is the Prague version on the CL world, that have a big intersection between CL and EL. One is EAP 6110, which is the one that is going to include the deposits as part of the block or something. So basically makes the whole mechanism where the CL has to go and wait for the deposit logs, and then there's like a 14-hour wait and stuff. So basically 6110 is going to deal with that and make this a bit quicker. So that's the one that we already have a prototype implemented in Besu. And that's the one that I was recently migrating from experimental into the actual like Prague fork. 7002 is like it's a second EAP that has a huge intersection with the EL, which is the one where we're gonna allow for validated exits being triggered from the execution layer. So I don't know if everyone's familiar with validated exits at the moment, but basically currently when you create your validator, you've got the validator key. You can sign a message to send a voluntary exit operation to the beacon node, and then the beacon node is going to process that message, include it in a block, and then process your exit. The problem is that, especially in those scenarios where you have one person running the validator, so they have like the validator key, but the person that actually owns the funds has the withdrawal keys, and then you have like those kind of like consortium kind of dynamics. People don't really have a way of exiting without the validator key. So I think good example. Let's say that we are using a staking provider. They are running the validator for you, but you own the Ether, right? Usually what happens is that they're going to have your validator key, and then you have the withdrawal key. Usually like it's going to be like a ETH1 address that you use, so you receive like the rewards, right? But currently you have, if you say, oh, actually I want to exit my validator, if the other party decides like, oh, I'm not going to sign the message for you, you're kind of like in a hostage situation where your funds are there even though you own the withdrawal keys. So what we are creating now is a mechanism where you can trigger an exit from the execution layer. So if you have a withdrawal address, which is like an Ethereum 1 address, that you can actually, you're going to be able to send a message to a smart contract that's going to be a precompile, that's going to basically create an exit, and that's going to be included in the block sent to the EL. So when the EL receives that, it's going to kind of follow the same flow as if it were sent as a voluntary exit. So basically, we're going to have two pathways to exit in the validator: one from the EL and one from the CL. The interesting thing is because I'm working on 7002 on the Teku side, but the actual work in Teku is like, I don't know, 10% of the EAP. It's like most of the logic is actually on the EL side, because on Teku, basically, I'm listening to, the execution payload that comes back, find the exits on the block, and then just process them as I'm processing the other operation. So it's a very trivial change. So part of why I started like doing some of this work in Besu is mostly to help when we come to like testing, because we do most of our integration testing and acceptance tests with Besu. So I was trying to basically like save time in the future, and I didn't see anyone working on this. So I was like, I'll start doing some of the work. So that's where we are at the moment. We have one problem, like a kind of one thing that I wasn't expecting, that is on the experimental. So when we had the part of this change also adds the new engine get payload and engine new payload v4 methods. And the unit test that we had for the v4 methods, which were called v6110 when they were experimental, it was actually wrong. It was even though it was supposed to be the test for v6110, it was using the v3 payload, sorry, the v3 method for the unit test. So everything looked like it was fine. But then when I was doing the renaming, I'm like, oh, this is wrong. Let me put the right method here. And that's when it went kaboom. And now, we have a bunch of broken tests. And it's slightly more complicated because they are all like hierarchical. So the v4 test extends the v3, that extends the v2. And so I think some of the assumptions that we have are not necessarily true anymore. So I think it's going to be like more than just go and fix the test. It might be a little bit more work in terms of like restructuring those tests, or, it's potentially it's more work than just, changing a few things on the test. So that's one of the, so, okay, back to, I've merged one PR that renamed everything from 6110 to v4, but didn't change the test. So the test is still doing the wrong thing, but at least, everything else is there, like, the new versions and everything is scheduled under prog now. So it's kind of a good start, I think. I have a second PR that is not passing at the moment, but hopefully will pass soon, which is actually adding the exits to that structure. So basically updating the block and block header, all the execution payload, and a bunch of other places to add the exits to that. But we still have the underlying problem where the test is basically not really testing the right thing. So it will, if someone could help me with that, it would be good. Otherwise, I'll see if I can get to it. But I think it might be easier for someone that has been doing more recent work in Besu because even like to make the decision on how to break the thing and everything, it might be easy if someone else does it. But otherwise, I can try to help. And so basically, just going back to the ticket, my PR is probably going to tick box 1, 2, and 3. And then box 4 and 5 are probably like let's say the interesting part of the AP, where we actually have the precompile, and then we have the logic of queuing the transactions, and there's like a bunch of stuff on the AP. If you look at the reference AP, you're gonna see. I can help with that one. It's actually similar to something that we've done before with some of the privacy precompiles. So because that's going to be the first precompile that has access to state. So it's going to be, they're calling like a stateful precompile. Because I think so far all the precompiles are basically like one single operation that you do it and just return the result. This one is actually, it's going to behave more like a contract. So it's going to have access to state, the world state and everything. So it's a little bit different from have a prototype in another branch, but this one probably needs like more conversation. So if someone from Besu wants to work on this, we can even work together. That would be cool. Let me know, and then we can take it from there. So that's it. Sorry, that's me complaining about the test, but also asking for help.
Thanks, Lucas. Yeah, so we have a limited set of people working on Prague EIPs at the moment, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure, unless anyone wants to and is able to put their hand up now, we can take that away and find the appropriate person to put you in touch with.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's working on this right now.
If no one is, I don't. I'll probably keep working on it as I can, but it's just like if we get someone from Besu, they might be quicker to implement things, but that's okay.
I think it would be good too to have someone from Besu work on this with
Yeah.
you. Yeah, so I think we can find someone. I don't want to deprive everyone who's not on the call for the opportunity as well.
Yeah, and I think it's not necessarily like super important, to be honest, from like my selfish perspective. As long as I get the feuds on the execution payload, I don't really care what's coming back from Besu from like the integration kind of perspective. But I mean, I was kind of interested in just going and implementing this anyway. But anyway, let me know on Discord if someone wants to work on this, or I mean, just send a message on the ticket or something. I'll keep moving forward as I can. But yeah.
Is that are you also working on the other ERPs, like the inclusion list stuff, or?
No, not inclusion list. No. The other EAP that is kind of related to not related to this, but it's so 6110 is the other one where we already have. I was looking through the Besu code, and I think it's like almost implemented. Maybe it's missing a few things, but it's close to be done. I'm not sure if we are including everything on the block correctly or something. So there's going to be some kind of testing there or something that we need to figure out. But yeah,
it should be implemented, but it was based on a previous draft of the EIP,
Yeah.
so it might be out of date.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so that's something to keep in mind. It was actually helpful because a lot of the changes for 6110 were very similar for the changes that I had to do for the exits. So I was kind of following the pull request and, oh yeah, I have to change the builder something over there. And then so it was kind of easy for me to kind of find the places that I had to change. So yeah, so that's where we are. So I'm hoping that I'm going to get my pull requests with the exits properly running today. And then once we merge that, we have like the skeleton of that over there. And then it's more like actually including something now when we create the block. And then to create something, we need to have the precompiler and on and on. Anyway, that's it. Sorry, don't want to take too much of the call time on this, but because I don't even know if it's a priority for Besu or anything. So I wasn't 100% sure what was the right process here, but
yeah, I don't know about priorities yet, but yeah, I think we'll put you in touch with
yeah.
whoever's looking at the Prague EIPs, and then we can figure that out.
Yeah, and it's good to know that I think it's likely that the two EAPs for Electro that are going to be tested on the first test nets are probably going to be 6110 and 7002. So if we want to be like on time for test nets and stuff, it's probably a good thing. Because the main reason is because they are kind of changing the same area, so that's why it's easier to just ship both of them and test them at the same time. Even though they do different things, like the intersection between EL and CL is pretty much the same through the execution payload. So it was a bit easier to just, instead of having like different flags and everything, just put them all on the prog and then just testing those. Anyway, that's me.
Has anyone mentioned a date for that first DevNet?
I'm not aware of any specific dates, but I know that people are already working on those EIPs, but yeah, I'm not sure if we have any dates.
Mm-hmm. Thank
That's
you.
it. Go, thank you.
Anything else anyone wants to discuss? All right then. I think we're done.
Awesome.
Thanks for your time, everyone.
Good to see everyone.
Likewise.
See you.
Thanks,
Bye.
man.
See ya.